afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast with me, Sarah, the Norfolk Bookworm, and
James from Basil and History.
Yeah. So we're not experts, but we like history. So yeah. But today's podcast, so this is a subject that I'll be honest, I know very little about. But we'll muddle through and see what we can find out. But the English Civil War, or wars, plural, because one war wasn't enough, evidently. We had to have, what was it, three?
Three, yeah, we had to have three, yeah.
Yeah, so...
we enjoyed them so much.
Yeah, we thought we'd just chuck a few more in just to...
Go for it.
But...
I will add that I don't know much about this either. This is why we're doing it, just so I could teach myself.
Yeah, sometimes it's the best way. If you're not sure on a subject, just make a podcast about it. And
why not?
Yeah, why not? Why not, eh? But
more people don't do it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, how did it all start? That's the thing. Yes. What kicks it off? Yeah. I mean, I think from the little that I do know, it wasn't just something that just happened. There would have been quite a bit of build-up.
Yeah, so it's like any other major incident, really, it's always complex, and there's always something to build up to it, and this is no different. There's plenty of things that happened before we resulted in one of many wars.
Right. So what kind of things were happening then? So I imagine there would have been tensions building, probably for several decades, I imagine. So what was going on then?
So the main one was to do with the monarchy. So at the time we had two kings involved in this. You had King James I and his son, who was King Charles I.
Right.
And they were arrogant enough to believe that they were put into their position by God, and God gave them their power.
Right,
they were God's representatives on earth. And at no point should anyone on earth question them at all.
So they could do no wrong, basically. They were like, right, okay. Great attitude for a king, I must say.
Yeah. They're just tourist attractions now. It's a lot easier. But obviously that attitude flew in the face of what Parliament thought, and Parliament thought it should have a significant role with governance.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it comes to raising revenue.
Right, okay.
Obviously, James I was quite good at managing Parliament, whereas Charles had no time for them.
Right, okay.
So he wasn't happy with compromising with them.
Right.
He also had religion as well, everyone's favourite topic, religion.
Yeah, unfortunately. Nothing against it personally, of course, but it seems to be... the cause of quite a lot of conflict when you look back over the years.
It was at this time as well. Obviously, at the time, the established religion was the Church of England here. But quite a lot of people, including the Puritans mostly, didn't like it. They thought the Reformation hadn't gone far enough, and the Church had retained too many similarities to the Catholics.
Right.
And they wanted more scripture-based form of worship, whereas Charles didn't really like that. He liked the full ceremonial bit.
Right, okay.
And he appointed a fellow called William Laud as his Archbishop of Canterbury. And Laud, he enforced specific rituals and persecuted anyone who didn't like it.
Right.
He was quite unpopular, and that was off the back of that a lot of radical Puritans ended up emigrating to North America. Those on the Mayflower, for instance.
Right, okay. Yeah, I hear so much about the Mayflower. It crops up a lot, and it's one of those things, people mention it, or a lot of people will say, I had ancestors that were on the Mayflower, and I'll be honest, I always think, I don't know the significance of it. I know it is a very significant thing, but I'm not going to lie, my history, especially from that time period, is very, very limited, if not completely non-existent. But it's something that I'd like to have more of an understanding about, especially when you do start to go further back with your ancestry research. It's good to have an idea of what was actually happening in the world or in the country that you're researching at the time, rather than being completely ignorant to it, which I am at the moment. I don't even know what's going on in the world today, to be quite honest. So to ask me what was happening in the early 1600s politically, I wouldn't have a clue. But hopefully that will change. You seem to be a little bit, quite a lot more clued up on it compared to me. So you can probably, this can be you teaching me what was happening.
Yeah, luckily none of this involves Donald Trump. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit more logic to it. Obviously, in our neck of the woods, South Essex, the Mayflower has a little bit more significance because several of the people on it were from Billericay, just down the road from me.
Yes, that I had heard.
When I have spoken to Americans about it and I mention the Mayflower, I've always got a blank look, like they have no idea what the Mayflower was.
No, well, I mean, you'd probably get the same. Well, maybe if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, you would have got exactly the same from me. But because I notice a lot of things around here, especially in that neck of the woods, are named after the Mayflower. You've got the retail park. I mean, I assume that's the Mayflower that we're talking about, and that it's not another Mayflower.
And with schools and all sorts.
It is quite significant.
You'll see it,
yeah. But
anyway, where were we? Reasons for the Civil War.
Yeah, so we're talking about the fact that basically anyone that didn't like Charles's religious policies were punished. One of the punishments apparently was mutilating people's ears.
Yeah, removing ears. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's.
I don't know.
Why? Ears of all body parts. Sorry.
You wouldn't hear of it these days.
That is hilarious. But humour at its finest.
This isn't going to be a laugh right on the subject.
No.
I've got to try and sneak them in something.
But yeah, that's just an example.
So you had his arrogance and religion. There was also money as well, funny enough. So because obviously he needed funds.
Yeah.
Apparently to govern. Exactly what he did to govern with those funds, I have no idea. But those funds came from taxation, and funny enough, people didn't like being taxed, especially
no, they still
don't. Into a king's pocket. No, they don't, and it's still going into a king's pockets.
Yeah.
He apparently frequently faced financial difficulties, and always was looking for ways to raise different money without Parliament's consent, which was deemed unlawful.
Right.
And one of the particular resented levies he raised was called shipment money, which was a historical tax on coastal regions for naval defence. And what he did was started moving that further inland. So even though you were living in Birmingham, you were still paying for the defence of your coast, even though it was your coast, I suppose.
Yeah.
But funny enough, it wasn't popular.
So even if you didn't live anywhere near the coast, you still had to pay this coastal tax. Yeah, I can see that being.
They must have thought.
I can see that being quite irritating.
If they're going to invade Southend-on-Sea, why would they go any further inland? They'd hit the like the 1 penny machines and then flee.
Yeah. Once they got their Saying that, do you even get those anymore? Have they been done away with?
Yes, they still do them.
Really? Oh, because we went somewhere. This is off topic now. But we went somewhere and literally they only had 10p, 5p and 10p machines. They didn't have 2p machines. And I was really upset by that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But anyway, that is off topic. Back to the subject in hand. Okay, yes. So we've got obviously religion, we've got taxes, people's ears getting cut off. All of this is happening. And
then in 1628, Parliament wanted to implore Charles to agree to the Petition of Right, which limited his powers, including taxation and imprisoning people without due cause, which again Charles didn't like.
No.
So all this is just creating further tension.
It just seems to be whatever someone does, someone else doesn't like it, and then it just causes a bit of a conflict.
We call it the internet.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have internet then, so they had to find other ways to disagree with each other. They probably
by having
didn't
wars.
resort into calling each other Nazis, though.
Mm.
And then there was an 11-year period where there was no parliament. Charles didn't call parliament at all.
Right.
And it was either known as his personal rule, or people who didn't like him referred to it as 11 years tyranny. Which, once again, obviously, those who were in parliament, those who were members of parliament, didn't like that.
No.
Charles then, one of Charles's advisors was Thomas Wentworth, who was the Earl of Strafford, and he was the one implementing the policies and extracting revenue.
Right. Well, it's all kicking off.
It's building.
It's building. It's building up.
And then back to religion, where Charles started to then try and impose a new prayer book on the Presbyterians in Scotland, and they didn't like that. So once again, he's now trying to force his religion in Scotland, which was still a separate kingdom, and they resisted it big time. And then it led to what was called the Bishops' War, which Charles lost. And he then required further funds to finance these conflicts. So he then, in 1640, had to recall Parliament.
Right.
But Parliament didn't ask them, as they refused to give him the funds. So he dissolved Parliament.
He's like a child throwing his toys out of the pram.
Yeah, exactly what's happening. Well, if I can't do it, then off you go. Yeah.
It's quite alarming that these people are running our country, you know? Well, they were running our country.
I think that the way I look at it is, whoever wins here, the Crown or the Parliament, we're the losers. Yeah. Then after that, we had the Long Parliament, which, faced with ongoing Scottish resistance and dire financial straits, Charles had to summon another Parliament, which became known as the Long Parliament, because it sat for about 20 years until the Restoration in 1660.
Right.
But they were determined to rein the monarchy in.
Right.
It was in 1641, they presented him with a comprehensive list of grievances. Here's your complaints. And basically, it was just to point out that there's massive differences between what you want and what we want.
Right.
But at one point, it was the Long Parliament who impeached Thomas Wentworth and also the Archbishop William Laud.
Okay.
And then they also enacted legislation to prevent the king from governing without Parliament in the future.
And this was 1641. So that was the same year as the Irish Rebellion, was it not? So was that?
So
stemmed from
the
that.
English Civil War is also known. Yeah, they're also known as the War of the Three Kingdoms.
Right.
So England, Scotland, and Ireland.
Right.
But there was a Catholic uprising in Ireland, which then caused worries in England of a Catholic conspiracy. Obviously, that's what we did before we had the Russians to worry about. But this caused more lack of trust in Charles, who was perceived by some as being too sympathetic to Catholics.
Right. Okay.
So I think kick off in Ireland, it must be probably going to kick off here, is what they're worrying about.
So he starts getting annoyed and he starts trying to arrest people.
So, he sends troops into Parliament to try and arrest 5 members of Parliament, including one called John Pym, who was he was one of the central political leaders in Parliament at the time. He spearheaded a political opposition to the king.
Right.
Consistently pushed for reforms and greater balance of power between the Crown and Parliament.
So he's kind of a bit of a thorn in the king's side then, I imagine.
Yeah.
So he's going to be number one on the hit list.
Yeah, he wanted power to be balanced between the Crown.
Which sounds fair enough. That sounds fair enough to me, but what do I know?
I suppose, at least there's compromise there, which it sounds like the Crown had no intention of doing.
Right.
But it was Pym did a lot of fundraising and things like that, and built an alliance with Scotland when the wars kicked off.
Right, which is the same year, was it not? The first of the three. That was
Yeah.
Well, it's...
So that was the year after 1642, the first war kicked off. But when he sent troops in Parliament to arrest 5 members of Parliament, it's obvious which way it's going.
Yes. Yeah. It could only really have one outcome. So...
Yeah, it's going to be...
Jump forward
Especially when...
Sorry, I'm interrupting. Go on, you
so
say what you were going to say.
When it is going to be the country divided, because those who want Parliament, which I suppose was going to be a lot of people, especially in Essex where we are, it was a very parliamentarian county. Yeah. And then you had quite a lot of nobility who wanted the king to rule because they would have earned their position from him to a certain extent, or their wealth, or yeah. But then, if we jump forward to the 22nd of August, 1642, we had the Battle of Edgehill. Now, I knew a lot of the names of these battles. But
they all ring bells, but it's the ins and outs of it that I'm not quite sure on. We probably did cover this at school, but that was a long time ago for me.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, we didn't. We did Romans when I was at school, which is all very well for a couple of lessons, but when you do it for a whole term,
I can't remember. I literally can't remember what I did. Wasn't actually a history fan as a school kid, so just kind of all went over my head, if I'm quite honest.
History at school and history of what was on television, they were very different.
Yes, that's true.
And television one, yeah.
I'm just grabbing my glasses, but so we've got Battle of Edgehill. So that was August 1642. So that was the first kind of major engagement of the war. Then was this Battle of Edgehill? It's what kind of kicked everything off, from what I understand.
You had the Crown's forces, which were commanded by Prince Rupert. Yeah, and he was the nephew of King Charles I.
Right.
And before the outbreak of war, he came into England and was basically put in charge because he had some prior military experience.
Right.
He was made the General of Horse, so he was in charge of the Royalist Cavalry, and he was 23 at the time.
Wow, so it's a lot of responsibility for someone as... But then was 23 considered young then? I mean, I don't know. Obviously, it's very...
Probably midlife then.
Yeah, I was going to say, that probably... It seems young to us, but...
That or a soft top Porsche.
Yeah. But
then you had the parliamentarian forces were controlled by the Earl of Essex, of course. It had to be Essex.
Of course.
They fought it out, but it wasn't really a winner. It was almost like a score draw.
Right.
So it didn't conclude anything. So it carried on, but it got sort of like niggly. There was lots of sieges and smaller engagements, and this was the time when, like 1643, when Oliver Cromwell began to emerge.
I was wondering when he was going to pop up.
It's 1643. Yeah. Right. So he was distinguished cavalry commander for the parliamentarian forces,
right.
And he was really well renowned for the discipline of his rigorously trained troops, who were known as Ironsides, and they were quite strongly driven by religious convictions, and they thought they were fighting for a righteous cause.
I guess, yeah.
I suppose then, the chances are he might have been quite religious, and he used that to spur them on.
That's the thing, isn't it? Everybody from their point of view thinks that they're right.
You hear stories about it in the American Civil War, which I know far more about, and then when sort of one side asks the other, why are you fighting? It's because God is on our side. He says, we can't be on your side, he's on ours.
Yeah.
And chances are the king obviously thought he was there because God gave him the position. He must have thought God was on his side as well. So,
that's the thing. Everybody thinks that they're doing the right thing, but they're also in complete conflict with each other.
Yeah.
But so enter Oliver Cromwell.
And then so that's 1643. Then in 2nd of July 1644, you had the Battle of Marston Moor, which is another name I knew of. I can't tell you where it is. I didn't know anything about it, but I now know through little bits of research. It was a decisive victory for the Parliament, and the Scottish Covenants are alive. Sorry?
Right. I said good for them.
But yes, so what happened was, because the king had gone into Scotland and caused trouble, someone thought, hang about, we might be able to do a deal with the Scots and get them in on our side. And it worked.
Yeah.
So it was with Oliver Cromwell's cavalry, they played a pivotal role in the rout. It was a proper rout of the royalist forces. And it really weakened the king's control in the northern regions. So his rule is shrinking. And then almost a year later, you have the Battle of Naseby, which is an even more famous battle.
Yeah, that one I think I've heard of actually. Again, the name is familiar. You don't realise that you're aware of these names, and then you're like, oh yeah, I've heard that.
Well, the thing is that, they'll come up on the TV or again in podcasts.
Yeah, and it just rings a bell. I know what you mean.
Yeah, this was the battle that basically destroyed the royalist military capacity, and you had the New Model Army, which was the professional army established by Parliament and led by a fellow called Sir Thomas Fairfax, and Cromwell was his lieutenant general of cavalry.
Right.
And they battered the king's forces, basically all but finishing them off. And it was the year later after that battle at Naseby that the royalist cause had collapsed and King Charles I surrendered to the Scottish army.
So that kind of brought about an end then to the first war. Then I guess with them being defeated, right? Okay. So
so in the end you had. Yeah, we then had the period called the interregnum, which means without rule, basically no king.
No.
We were a republic. Then, so the army, the Parliament and army engaged in long negotiations regarding the future of the king and the nation, and Charles was held captive. Right. He tried to basically stick his nose in and wind up everything to try and exploit the division with his captors. Because I suppose once again we've won, what we're going to do, and then again you split again. We want to do this, we want to do that, and it's just going to cause more problems.
So things were far from settled by that point. So we've had a war, we've had a bust up, we've had a few battles, and we still don't know what's happening. Yeah,
let's do it again.
Yeah,
and there was
why not?
In 48, the second Civil War. I mean, for all these years, I heard the phrase English Civil War. I thought it was one war. It's not.
No, so to be fair, I thought the same. But yeah.
There's only I mentioned it again at the end. There's a podcast called "The World Turned Upside Down," which I had started listening to. It's about the English Civil Wars.
Right.
And it's so in-depth, but it's so well made.
But probably better than what we're doing right now. Kind of fumbling our way through.
On the head now. Stop listening and just go and listen to that.
If you want to listen to someone who knows what they're talking about. I mean, you're doing pretty well. I mean, you know a lot more than what I know. I know literally nothing. A couple of names and dates are ringing a bell, but other than that, I'm like, no, this is all new to me. But
this is just where I basically I knew I wanted to know more about this subject, so I'm going to go and do it, and basically, so we could talk about it here.
Yeah, well, so you could talk about it, and I could just sort of make and ah noises, because I haven't got much to add, but
Yeah, do that as well. That'd be good. It made me sound like I'm actually getting somewhere.
Interesting.
So, if we pause for a second, that way people can stop this and go and find that other podcast. Then we'll carry on.
Off you go.
So it was. Yeah, take care. So there was a royalist uprisings in 1648 across in various parts of England,
right.
And the Scottish, who they now decided they disagreed with Parliament, which isn't unlike them, and fair play to them, frankly. And they invaded to support the king, so they swapped sides. But they were swiftly suppressed by the Parliamentarian army under Cromwell and Sir Thomas Fairfax.
Right.
Yeah, so yes.
So that was the second one. So when did the third one come along?
That was the following year.
Oh, right. So they didn't have much of a break then, and they were at it again.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you then had, like December 1648, there was a lot of impatience with Parliament's continued attempts to negotiate with the king.
Right.
So the new modern army, who were commanded by a fellow called Colonel Thomas Pride, forcibly excluded members of Parliament who wanted a settlement with the king.
Right.
And so all that left with a group known as the Rump Parliament, which was a small radical assembly.
Right.
Which again, that's another term I'd heard of, and until now I had no idea.
So where are we now? So we're in 1649. So this is where it starts to get juicy.
So January 1649. Well, let's hope for the sake of this podcast it is juicy, because it's feeling a little bit stale. There's no laughs. There's not even a car chase in this. So
cars weren't
January
invented
1649.
Yep.
Oh, car chase then. Blimey. So 1649, you had that Rump Parliament, that small group of radicals. They'd established a special High Court of Justice, and they tried Charles for treason. And funny enough, they found him guilty, and he was executed. They cut his head off on the 30th of January, 1649. And to have a reigning monarch executed by his own subjects was unprecedented.
Yeah.
But apparently, as you often hear with these things, he faced it with composure and bravery.
Well.
But then I don't suppose you can do. Shit yourself, I suppose.
Well, he probably did afterwards, I imagine. But
I think afterwards you couldn't really blame him because he didn't have a head.
No. But why did they cut people's heads off? I wonder who invented that.
Why did we stop?
I'm glad we did. It's a pretty barbaric way to kill somebody.
I don't know. It'd be televised, and most television is quite bland.
No. Yeah, I guess they probably thought I could be heading. It keeps people interested.
Well, bearing in mind, it wasn't very late 70s that France stopped using the guillotine.
Yes, actually, I did know that. I came across that fact when I was working on another project, and I was really surprised. I mean, I know capital punishment was used up until a lot later than what I thought, but the guillotine, it seems so, medieval. But 1970s. I mean, that's about what, 50 odd years ago. That's not very long ago. A lot of people that were around in the 70s will still be alive now. It's not that far.
50 years. At least one of us was born in the early 80s, all right.
Yeah, but you're still 80s though. You're not 70s, you're still 80s.
No, but you still mentioned 50s, so I'm not quite there.
No, you're not. You're a little way off, don't worry. But just know that I'm behind you, so you'll be 50 before me.
Yeah, thanks. Anyway, you were just looking earlier. Anyway, so March 1649, it was the abolition of the monarchy and the House of Lords as well. They got rid of that. So England was declared a Commonwealth and a republic, governed only by Parliament.
Wow.
Yeah, I just even just saying governed by Parliament, it doesn't fill me with confidence. So 1649, we had the Third Civil War. So Charles's first son, Charles II, who had support of royalists in England and the Scottish, he attempted to regain the throne.
So let me just get this straight in my head, right? So January 1649, they chopped the king's head off.
Yeah.
And then
in March they got rid of the House of Lords.
Yeah, and then
the monarchy.
Then the Third Civil War starts.
Yes.
Right. Okay. No, I'm just trying to, and this was because the king's first son was trying to regain the throne, and that's what kind of prompted the start of the war, amongst other things. Right. Okay. No, I'm just trying to get it kind of straight in my head. Okay. Continue.
Oh, very kind of you. So we had 3rd of September 1650, the Battle of Dunbar, which is a name I wasn't familiar with, but it was, I mean, as far as I'm aware, it's Dunbar in Scotland. Maybe it's not, but Oliver Cromwell led his parliamentarian forces to a huge victory over a much larger Scottish army. Which
probably was in Scotland then, yeah, I was going to say.
And the Scottish army had proclaimed Charles II as their king.
Right.
So exactly a year later, 3rd of September 1651, you had the Battle of Worcester.
That one I'd heard of.
Yeah. Didn't you say you wanted us to get saucy?
I didn't say that, no, but
Spicy,
you've said it.
Spicy, but
I was going to
Worcester
mention
sauce,
Worcester sauce, yeah, but you beat me to it.
Which I'm more than that. We'll edit that out. But this Battle of Worcester was the final major battle of the English Civil Wars.
Right.
And once again, Cromwell defeated Charles II's royalists and the Scottish forces in England, and basically brought an end to his bid for the throne. And he was forced to flee in exile. So eventually, I think he went to Scotland, then he went to hide in Wales for a while, and then he went to France.
Right. So you went on a little trip.
That doesn't sound too bad to me.
No. So
maybe I might be forced into it.
So that's basically it in a nutshell then. Kind of. Try and remember all of that. So where does that leave us now? I mean, what did that change? Then
well, that was the end of another attempt to put a monarch in charge.
Right.
And we had a thing called the Protectorate. So Oliver Cromwell, now quite powerful, dissolved that rump parliament and put himself in charge as Lord Protector, effectively ruling England. So basically he's almost the king, but it was England, Scotland and Ireland he was in charge of, apparently. Apparently he's not that popular in Ireland.
I don't think he was that popular anywhere, to be honest.
No, I don't think he was, to be honest. But it was a period there was quite a bit of stability, even though it was a bit authoritarian.
Mm.
And Cromwell's rules, he had a lot of progressive reforms, but also a lot of strict puritanical laws, like banning religious symbols. So he tried to ban things like mince pies because they had religious symbols on them. So basically he was sort of trying to rein in Christmas, which I'm all for. Maybe we should bring quite a lot.
Maybe we're his ancestors. You never know.
I think I'd rein it in so we don't have to hear about bloody Christmas until a week before.
Yes.
Rather than from the 1st of September.
It's not even then. It's like middle of summer now, and you've got blooming Christmas songs playing on the. And
going into shops, and this is going to just turn into a rant. But going into a shop on the 1st of September, and they've got their first Christmas display up. I should be allowed to smash that up without recourse to the law.
I think you should be. And then just say that you're a descendant of Oliver Cromwell. And you're just continuing his... Anyway, might not work. You might still get arrested.
Yeah, it's funny like that. Sounds that's the downside of having Parliament charge. But in 1658, Oliver Cromwell died, and his son then took over as Lord Protector. But he wasn't the same person as Oliver Cromwell. Didn't have that authority.
No.
But he was eventually talked into resigning.
Right.
Which then who's in charge? It then kicks off a little bit more, but without resorting to a war. I think after 3.
Maybe they learnt their lesson.
Yeah, I think it's like the films. You have 3 films. They're going to turn out a prequel. You're just bored of it. So you then had the path of restoration, basically. So for a year, 1659 to 1660, there was a lot of political disorder. After the resignation, and General George Monk, who was a prominent military figure, ultimately marched his army to London and played a massive role in orchestrating the return of the monarchy. So it was in 1660 you then had Charles II, who'd come back from his European tour, and he was crowned king, and that was the end of the interregnum.
It's quite ironic that it was a Charles then, and we've got a Charles on the throne now.
What are you saying?
I'm just saying. It's just a coincidence.
You all heard Sarah, March on London.
No, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm literally just pointing out the coincidence of it. If we'd been doing this podcast a couple of years ago, it would have been different. We would anyway. I'll stop talking.
We could have done one on Queen Elizabeth I.
Yeah.
I'm not ruling it out. But, so that was it. Obviously, we now have the system of powerless figurehead on the throne, bleeding us dry. No, well, taking some of our taxes, and then it's Parliament bleeding us dry with unpopular taxes. Chances are there was a tax created then that we're still paying now.
there's always been a tax. As soon as they came up, they started to invent names so they could tax people. So that's been around since, yeah. So yeah, taxes. Maybe we could do a podcast on that, but it might turn into a rant about taxes.
It almost certainly will.
So maybe not.
No, I wonder if everyone here with podcast has ever been done treason. Oh, look,
possibly. I don't know. I wouldn't want us to be the first.
Well, your podcast, really.
But
I've no idea. It was you that wanted people marching on London, not me.
I never said anything about marching to London. So
no, it's read between the lines.
So obviously, we've got the rise of Parliament, and where am I? I've lost my train of thought now. I'm just trying to think of other things that those events back then, how what it kind of led to, and how it still impacts us today. Because, like they say, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, it does massively. Obviously, you've now got a parliamentarian sovereignty. But obviously, everything that happened, that is the most important long-term consequence of that decisive shift in the balance of power from the Crown to Parliament. And they also challenged that concept of divine right of kings, pointing out that it's crap. And it established the principle of parliamentary sovereignty. And it basically points out that Parliament is the supreme legal authority in the UK. So reason.
They're basically like in charge, and the monarch just there to kind of do as they're told.
They're running the country, and then in brackets, into the ground.
Yeah.
It also pointed out that, it showed that we had a constitutional monarchy. So it was the Crown had massively curtailed powers, basically they're tourist attractions now. It cemented the idea of this constitutional monarchy, when the monarch reigns according to laws made by Parliament, even though they've signed them off. So it's like the king doesn't have to have a driving licence because he signed it off, and you can't be done for laws, that your own laws, and something weird like that.
Some kind of loophole.
I'd like to think if a monarch was caught drink driving, something would be done.
Yeah. But I imagine as well that all of this happening, all of these events happening, would have led to some kind of development of political ideologies, and that I guess we probably still see today.
We do, is because you had so many different factions in Parliament, even though they wanted Parliament to be in the charge, they would have still differed on quite a lot of things. So they would have separated into what we now see as parties. So then it was the Whig Party and the Tories. And the Whigs are now the equivalent of the Liberal Democrats, but more powerful and actually knew what they were doing.
Right.
And obviously, Labour came along. I think Labour are late Victorian or something like that, early Edwardian.
So they kind of split into divisions rather than being all one. Because it's funny, isn't it, when you think of it, we have the different political parties, and the rule will change depending on who's voted in at the time. And I guess, you forget that it wouldn't always have been like that. It would have been just the one party. Is that right? And now it's kind of divided.
There was no parties. They would have just, I don't really know, especially with the king. The king would have been charged, so he was the equivalent.
It was. I guess it was like the king and his buddies running the country, and
basically.
Yeah, it's probably a simple way.
Like us peasants have only had the vote for not even 100 years yet, is it? 1930s, I think we all got the vote.
Was it? When did women get? Actually, no. That's another topic altogether. We
won't. After the First World War.
Yeah, it was quite. I know it was quite far off, wasn't it? What I was going to ask you something else. That kind of led on from that, and I've forgotten what it was.
Okay, so So there was obviously from the Civil War we get our ideas of rights and liberties from that. So at the time there was loads of pamphlets being produced during that interregnum period, and they looked at radical ideas about liberty and individual rights and the role of
government. Everyone's starting to get all leery now because of what's happened, and they're like, right, I'm going to stand up for my rights, and I want this and I want that. Right.
Yeah, there was a group called the Levellers, and they wanted broader suffrage.
Sounds like a band.
Social reform.
Was there a band called the Levellers?
They were the band called the Levellers in the 90s. Probably still
going.
I was going to
say, I do recognise that name, but yeah.
Yeah, they were all right. The New Model Army were a band as well in the 80s. I think they're still going. But I don't know what I'm talking about now. They wanted...
We're talking about the Levellers.
Things like that, yeah. And they had hits in the 90s. You've confused me now.
Sorry.
English Civil War in the 1990s. No, that doesn't sound right. Long-term development of democratic thought is what they wanted, or they contributed to it. So, they just wanted more equality for people.
Which is a good thing.
Never going to work.
No, never going to work, but it's a good thing.
Not while you got Parliament.
But you mentioned the New Model Army, so I'm guessing as well that there would have been some effect on the British Army as it was compared to how we know it.
Yeah, they are the model for a professional army who are promoted because they're actually any good at what they do rather than because of who they are. Which beforehand it was you got the role like Prince Rupert. It wasn't because he was an exceptional leader. It was because he was the king's nephew.
Right. So it's kind of like who you know, not what you know.
It was then who. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not always a good thing when you're talking about leading people to war.
No.
Right. So go on.
I was going to say we also had more toleration of different religious beliefs.
That's what I was going to say, actually, because obviously where a lot of this all stemmed from, I mean, I know there was multiple different factors, but because a lot of it did stem from these religious conflicts, did that then change anything afterwards? Was there more tolerance to the different religions, or was it still a case of there was a lot of division between them, or did we start to see more?
I think there's still quite a lot of division between religions today, but obviously we don't see it as much here.
No,
and I think that probably a lot of it is down to what followed after these wars. There was, obviously the Church of England was re-established, but the religious toleration had sort of begun, eventually leading to greater religious freedom. So you wouldn't have, we're not hiding. I don't know about you, but I'm not hiding a priest in the loft.
No, I did hide one last week, but I think he ran away. But yeah, he was no trouble. Well, he's been a bit quiet, so I think he's run away. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. I mean, but this would have been over centuries as well, wouldn't it? It wouldn't have been overnight. It would have kind of...
Yeah, it wasn't immediate.
Yeah. And I guess even when it got to the stage where they weren't having wars over things, I guess there still would have been that divide, sort of... for example, if you were Catholic, it was, well, depending on families and things, you wouldn't have been able to marry somebody outside of the Catholic faith. So I guess there would still be a little bit of intolerance there, but
it would have probably been frowned upon.
But not to the point where they're going to have a war over it.
No.
Yeah. But was there any other kind of... Because obviously, 3 wars over the course of 9 years, that is a lot of destruction and damage going on. I mean, because I don't know a huge amount about warfare back then, but I'm assuming there would have been like cannons and all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, there must have been a heck of a lot of damage, I imagine. I mean, would it have been a point, would it have been as significant as the Blitz, where they literally had to rebuild parts of London because it got completely annihilated, like, would it have had any kind of effect?
Good question. I think you go into a lot of places and you can still see damage. I mean, there's buildings in Colchester in Essex where you can see damage caused by during the civil wars. I imagine those, quite a lot of them, it's probably castles with Civil War damage.
Yeah.
But there's still going to be places where you can see the modifications made to fortifications.
Yeah, because, I mean, one thing that the Blitz did lead to, obviously totally different timeline, I'm just trying to make the comparison, but when you look at the Blitz, that did prompt the kind of the slum clearances and things like that, because when they had all of that damage, it kind of was an opportunity to rebuild, and that's when they started to clear the slums and kind of rebuild the city. And I just wondered if it was a similar kind of thing, you know, where was the damage significant enough where they did have a rebuild on their hands. Obviously, we're talking cannons and things compared to bombs, which would have been completely different. I don't know what the level of damage and destruction would have been. Again, I'm not particularly knowledgeable. I don't think
they were building new towns afterwards.
No, that's what I wondered. I just wondered if anything had come of that, or whether it was a case of, you know.
I think the problem we've got here is you're asking a question I haven't got the answer to.
I'm not suggesting. I just wondered. Again, I'm just thinking aloud, and you don't necessarily have to know the answer. It's just me thinking aloud. It's like, I wonder if. But it's just doesn't really require an answer. It's just, I'm just curious.
Well, that's all right then. I haven't got one.
Oh, fair enough. But
one thing I did learn was that during this civil war, that 9-year period where they were fighting, then they weren't, and they were fighting, then they weren't. It's estimated that around 200,000 people were killed, and that would have been like 4.5% of the English population.
That's quite a lot.
So a huge amount.
That alone would have a massive impact. You know, all of those people that their lives were kind of cut off before they could reproduce, if you like. It's made such a difference. I mean, imagine if all of those people hadn't have been killed. It's just strange how these things will work out. I guess you could say the same about the two more recent world wars that we've had. You know, the difference it would have made to the population, and how different life would be if they didn't happen. But I guess everything has a long-term impact, doesn't it? Even something that happened as far back as sort of the 1600s, we're still seeing the impact of that today, and we're hundreds and hundreds of years into the future from that.
Yeah. It shows what a massive event it was.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
The basis of how we're living today, to that extent, is based on that civil war.
Yeah, it kind of really, it would have. Can't even put it into words what I'm trying to say, but yeah, I know what you mean. But as far as you know as well, was there any other kind of obviously we've got the parliamentary stuff, we've got the development of the political ideologies, we've got the formation of the modern British Army, and the religious toleration. But as far as you know, was there anything else that came out of that conflict that again we might still have experience of today?
Well, it did show for a brief period that we could manage without a king, without a monarch.
Right, but obviously we didn't stick with that.
No, but then the monarch wasn't the one calling the shots afterwards.
No.
So
the monarch kind of got demoted after that. It was kind of like...
Also, bearing in mind, all this the Civil War. And the political turmoil and the religious squabbling. It was massively contributed to migration to North America.
Right, I'm not surprised. Everyone was like, "Right, I'm done. I'm off."
So it was that those ideals of having self-governance and individual rights debated during this period influenced the development of the political thought in the colonies. So rather than just paying their taxes and drinking their tea, they kicked off and went their own way. Yeah. And not done too badly either.
No, they have not. And it's funny as well, because when you think of all the people living out in the US that have, well, I imagine a lot of people living in the US can trace their ancestry back to here, amongst other places. Yeah. But again, how different that could have turned out if it hadn't have happened and the migrations hadn't have happened, then it would have affected the population of the US as well, not just here. It's kind of expanding out, isn't it?
I suspect there would have still been a migration. It just might have been Spanish or Chinese or And to a certain extent, it is. It's a mixing pot, the same as we are here. Yeah,
no, that's true. Well, I think I said it earlier on in the podcast, but everything happens for a reason. And obviously we're still seeing those reasons now and those outcomes now, sort of hundreds and hundreds of years after the event. So yeah, like you said, it just shows what a huge event it was. And I'm quite ashamed really that I don't know a lot about it. Because
maybe schools should be teaching it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, maybe they do now. I mean, you know, if I got my niece round here and questioned her about the Civil War, she might even know more than what I know, which isn't hard, to be fair. But yeah, maybe they do.
I'm hoping they don't, because they won't bother with this podcast.
No, that's true. Actually, maybe we should approach local schools with our podcast and say, right, you want to teach the kids something.
The only problem is, what if they do learn about it and they do listen to the podcast and then end up flooding us with messages telling us how wrong we were.
Yeah, that probably will happen. But
and how wrong you were in advising people to march on London.
Yeah, we'll pretend that conversation never happened. But
well, unfortunately, it's been recorded.
It has actually recorded and will soon be shared on Spotify at some stage. Assuming that it all, because I did notice, I don't know if you noticed, I went very quiet at the beginning. It was because my software had decided to cut itself off, but then it reconnected. So I'm hoping that we've actually captured everything and that we don't have a dropout halfway through. I won't know until I review the footage, but you know, it is what it is. The joys of streaming and recording. It's can't always be perfect, but well, that was very.
I don't think we should be aiming at.
No, that was very informative.
I hope so.
I've learned a little bit. I probably will need to go over some notes and kind of re-educate myself a bit. But if there's one thing that I have come away with, it's the fact that there were 3 civil wars, not 1, because I didn't actually know that until a couple of days ago, when I decided to have a brief look into the history for this podcast. Granted, I didn't do a huge amount of research because I knew that you were doing it, and I thought, well, I'll let you do it and then you can kind of teach me rather than conflicting stuff going on. But yeah, I was actually quite surprised at that.
People come away with it. I'm hoping people come away from it thinking they've learnt more than just that there was 3 wars, because that's the first thing we spoke about, and we could have just cut out the rest.
Yeah, actually, we could have just said, right, Civil War, there were 3. End of. Have a good day. Enjoy Sunday. But yeah, we've kind of just, well, you've done more talking than me, but that's fine, because like I said, you know a little bit more than what I know, which isn't much, but we're not experts. So we're not pretending to be experts. We are just two people that are interested in history, and we're just like trying to figure stuff out and learning. But anyway,
learning. Yeah, that's one of the best things about history. There's always people that know more, and then quite a lot of them are willing to share it with you.
Yes, that's the good thing about it.
They're definitely more interesting than we are.
Yeah, I do find that a lot of historians that I've met are always very, very keen to share what they know, which is quite nice because you can always learn a lot.
Yeah.
But
as I said earlier on, there is a podcast series of many podcasts called "When the World Turned Upside Down," which is about the English Civil War. So if you want to know more, that's the place to go to.
Yes. I'm saying yes. I haven't actually listened to this. I'm going to take your word for it. But yes, if you would like a more comprehensive view of the English Civil War and not just the garbage that we've just spouted for the last hour or however long we've been streaming, I don't actually know what we're on about. Well, nearly an hour. Then yeah, look this up because they've probably made a little bit more sense of it than what we have, and they know what they're talking about.
Imagine they've spent days and days and days recording it, and only to realise that they could have summed it up all in an hour.
Yeah. Well, even in the first kind of few minutes, because basically all people need to know is that there were 3 wars, not one.
There were 3 wars. There you go.
3 wars. King got his head chopped off at some point. End of. That is basically it. But
for the fellas with the haircuts one.
Yeah. So that is the English Civil War, or wars plural. On that note, we'll call it a day. Thank you for your time, James. I appreciate that. You've taught me. Well, you've taught me quite a bit. I'll have to remember it all, but I definitely know more than what I knew going in. So going in, I didn't know much. Would say,
the entire aim of why I did, or we put this together.
Yes, but yeah. Well, if anyone is listening, thank you, appreciate it. Feedback is always welcome, and if anyone's got any ideas for other subjects they would like us to muddle through and figure out, then just please drop us a line, let us know. But let me end the podcast here, if I can find the right button to press. But yeah, I'm having to go with the normal mouse click because I can't reach over at the moment. Anyway, have a good rest of the day, and we'll be back soon.